Hey everybody, Matt Brown here, and this is going to be a start of who knows how many part lesson. I'm going to take this a chunk at a time. This one is 3 Days by Jane's Addiction. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and I've transcribed the whole song, so if anybody wants the transcription of the whole song, all the guitar parts, you can shoot me an email, and my email is at the top of my YouTube page. Alright, so let's talk about tone and key and all of that good stuff. So we're playing with a humbucker, bridge pickup, some chorus, and a little bit of reverb and delay as well. Alright, so this one's in the key of B minor, and what I just played is the intro guitar riff. So what we're going to do essentially is fret a B5 power chord, but we're going to leave the G string open above it, so we can get that kind of rub right there between the F sharp and G. So then we're going to come to an open D string there, and the next chord is, it's essentially, you know, like a D major 7 without the third up high, and sometimes we're going to be pulling off from that third fret note, the D note. So here's what the first bar sounds like real slow. So I'll loop that slowly. Alright, so the second measure is just essentially a variation. Instead of coming and playing the low notes of the chord, we're going to play a high E at the end of the bar. So here's the second bar slow. Like so. So I'll loop that one slowly. So now our third bar is the same as the first, and the fourth bar of this phrase is very similar. Instead of doing, we're going to do, so the full fourth bar will sound like this. So we have that little trill thing there. So let's look at the first 4 bars all together slow. Back at tempo. Alright, so that keeps going, and then we have, it's like a little bit, it's like a lick with double stops played on the high 2 strings. So let's take a look at that. Sounds like this. Alright, so essentially my advice to you would be to learn what your shapes are in terms of your intervals on the high strings. Like power chord, pretty easy. That would be a 4th, and that would be a 3rd. And those are primarily, and also a 2nd, because we're going to use seconds to embellish what we're going to be playing here as well. So we're going to start here. It's essentially a power chord that kind of implies like a B minor 7 sound over, you know, the riff. So 1. So it goes to 15 and 14, and then 14 and 12. 1. Alright, let's look at the next bar. It goes. So, really slowly. and then some open strings there. So the first 2 bars of that really slowly. 1. Alright, so now the progression is back to B5-ish, I guess, and so he's playing out of this 4th shape, which is, would be the F sharp in B, or the 5th in root of the chord there. So here's that measure. Again, slowly. Alright, and then the final bar of this. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, that again slow. 3, 4. So let's put all of this back together slowly. 1. All right. So now we are to the verse where Perry starts singing. So the first part it's essentially just like the intro that I played for you. There is a little bit of loose improvisation, so you know there's a little bit of wiggle room. You don't have to play the riffs exactly at the same time, but you want to keep the general kind of idea happening there the same. Alright, so now let's look at, I'm going to call the next part the pre-chorus. The guitar part starts to change up a little bit, so let's look at that next. So it sounds like this. Okay, so I want to talk about maybe what's going on, like his approach to this. He did, it's a really cool instructional, Dave Navarro did an instructional video on some ideas on how he likes to generate kind of like these clean tone parts that are melodic yet still kind of rhythmic at the same time. And really his approach is, you know, just look at like one of the pentatonic scale patterns, like if we're playing in you know, B minor pentatonic, we have all of those notes there along the 2nd fret, with the exception of the C sharp, but you know, that's the 9th of a B minor chord, so you know, that's going to work there. And so essentially he's just, you know, just experimenting with creating melodies out of, you know, keeping the first hand or first finger in this position. That type of deal. So you have those notes to play with. So structurally with this riff we have a B pedal tone played on the downbeat, and then for the rest of the measure the E note at the 2nd fret above it is played as your pedal tone. So slowly we have this. Back at tempo. Alright, now here we're to like a little interlude part that connects us between the pre-chorus and our next verse. So it goes like this. Alright, so real simple. Just we have a B chord. And these are 4-string chords here. So to an A chord. And the bass does the fill. 4. So that measure starts with A. 2, 3, 4. And then we're back to the verse. Alright, so, and then we do the pre-chorus again, but instead of going to the, with clean tone, we're gonna switch to a dirty tone and go to, I'm just gonna call it the chorus of this section of the song. So let's look at that. So let's look at just the first 4 bars that we have here. It sounds like this. Alright. So something in terms of tone that you might want to look out for is that if you don't have your delay through the effects loop, it's going to be a lot more, like the effects level is going to seem a lot more apparent if you're playing with a dirty channel versus clean. So I normally have it set up, but I don't for this lesson for whatever reason. So just keep that in mind. So we're playing with the B chord here. So the chord progression is essentially B to A, E to A, and then B, A, B is the progression. So then we're going to do a big slide up, I'd say about to the 15th fret. Alright, now the second guitar is playing power chord versions of that chord progression on the highest 3 strings. So let's look at those chords here. We'd have B5 first, which is 4, 7, 7. And then we're going to come down here for A at first, 2, 5, 5. And then E up here, 9, 12, 12. And then we have A up here, an octave higher, which would be 14, 17, 17. So let's hear how these 4 bars sound. So for the final B chord, we're going to be playing out of this like B shape here in 7th position. So if you know your F chord, it's basically that, just moved up in a chunk. And we can embellish that with the sus4, which he does. So let's hear this whole thing slowly. So back at tempo. Let's look at the next guitar part. Sounds like this. Alright, so we're playing 3-string triads, and you can arpeggiate the chords like he does, or just strum the chords. Either way, it's going to sound good. So B to A, and then up to the E chord, and then we can slide up higher to A, then come back down, and then E down here. Alright, so now we're into a new section of the song. Here we have a tempo increase, and essentially what happens is we begin a vamp that just starts repeating over and over. So a vamp is just a simple chord progression with just a few chords that repeats and loops and loops. So the chords for our vamp are going to be E, so that's 2, 1, open, open. And then we're going to play E minor 7, which is 5, 4, 3, open. And you might be saying, well, hey, that's like a G6 chord. But the bass is still playing E as the root note. So if you hear, you know, it sounds definitely E minor instead of G. All right, so let's look at the rhythm. That's the rhythm to it there. So we've got a ba 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 ba. So kind of like a dotted 8th, 16th, and then 2 8th notes, and then some muted strums at the end there. So to do it slowly, we'd have. So there are some overdub tracks here that are going on that are just kind of filling space, like playing like a big E chord, and then for, you know, E minor 7, you can do something like that, which is 5, 7, open, open, or you could play that whole full thing, which would be 7, 5, 7, open, open. So. You know, that type of deal, just kind of fill in some extra space in the mix. Okay, so what happens is, you know, some singing over that vamp, and then we have Dave's first solo. So let's look at Dave's solo. Alright, so I'm just going to do this slowly for you here. To break down the scales that are going on, since we're playing over E in E minor, you know, we want to juxtapose like that major and minor sound with our scale choices. So he's playing a lot of like Mixolydian stuff and a lot of Dorian stuff as well to kind of blend in and keep this nice. So here it is slowly.